Greetings and welcome to another edition of Free Association Radio. This is the Friday FARcast with Robert Phoenix. Just trying to get back into physical form here as I chase the devil, the viral devil, out of my body. Out with ye. Out with ye. It's almost gone. The voice is a little excuse me, it's a little raspy. But I've been working today. I've done 2 readings this morning. I actually decided to go to bed early last night. And when I mean early, I was in bed by, for me, 10 o'clock. That's early. I usually am in bed by 12:31, generally speaking. And I was awake by 4. So I got a good 6 hours of sleep. So I've been up since 4 o'clock in the morning, just, putzing around and taking care of business and emails and all the things that I've got to continue to do to run a website and continue the practice of being an astrologer, which is, well, that and more, but that's how I make my living. That's the bread and butter. Bread and butter. So I've been working the astrological back channel this morning. And now I'm into the show. And of course, on Friday we try to go into a bit of a different direction. Although reality has gotten so. It used to be that there was this slice of reality that we were living in, and even with Obama, it was in some ways fundamentally mundane. Like every now and then there'd be some high strange with Obama, like the thing with the flies on his face, the Lord of the Flies, and Obama catching flies, and that whole fly trip with Obama. There'd be that. And then of course we had all of the massive BLM movement. We had a massive BLM movement when Obama was president, which is true. There are, unfortunately, and I'm just, say it for what, unfortunately, there are young black men dying in this country on a daily basis. They are. I'm sure there are at least, over the past month, 3 or 4 that have met some untimely end, which, if parsed a certain way, could probably look a lot like police brutality. Now, that is not giving the police a pass. Because as I've pointed out before, after 9/11, there is a major movement of sending police chiefs and sergeants and captains over to Israel and to learn how to deal with crowds, crime, suspects, and assault at the elbow of the IDF. And this has been going, and it's still going on. People go over there, they train, they come back, and they pass along the training and the training manuals and the DVDs and all that stuff. And I guarantee you there's software involved too. And so since 9/11, 2001, our police force has been slowly transformed to take on more of the traits of the IDF. Even the self-defense techniques that the IDF specializes in, there's a form of jiu-jitsu called Krav Maga. And even that's now being used by police departments, and people are being trained in Krav Maga in order to subdue people. And then, of course, you have the militarization of the police, which has taken place again since 9/11, 2001, because they have to do something with this equipment that comes back over from the Middle Eastern front or the North African front. It's still viable, it's still usable, but they've always got to replace it with new equipment so that they can run up the bill with the military-industrial complex. So what do they do with the old stuff? Well, they sell it to local police departments who have a budget for this. They actually get money from, I believe, the DHS. So what we've seen the militarization of the police and a whole new style policing come into being. So we have to frame this in some ways, right? Treating American criminals or treating American people or suspects as if they are rogue Palestinians with bombs tied to their backs. Now that said, it's a perfect storm. You get people from neighborhoods that where crime is rampant. The local economy is a drug economy. And there's a whole different set of rules of engagement. Okay? We just have to be straight up about that. So here we have this perfect storm that has occurred in America since 9/11, 2001. And it's been accumulating over time. But during the Obama administration, events that were probably minor headline events at one point in time, if that, blips on the radar of a police scanner, were sensationalized and brought to national attention. And in some cases, those were cases that probably needed to be brought to the attention of people. Eric Garner of New York comes to mind. He didn't have to go through what he went through. He was not a criminal felon, okay? He was not... Eric Garner is very different than Michael Brown, okay? I'm just being straight up. Michael Brown was trying to wrench the gun away from the guy who was trying to cool his jets. And that's what happened. And yet, it becomes this cause celeb. And so we had all this going on during the Obama administration. And that was the one thing from a reality perspective that we could look at and see how distorted it was. And there was all kinds of crazy things going on with, all kicking off with Trayvon Martin and the relationship with the death of Trayvon Martin to Dick Cheney. Remember how Dick Cheney was supposed to have gotten Trayvon Martin's heart? It kind of makes sense in some ways, in a bizarre way. And then there's Tracy Martin, his dad, showing up in all the Freemasonic garb, and he's on Oprah, and a lot of these people rarely show any emotion. When somebody actually really died. I mean, we're thinking that Trayvon Martin really died, right? I mean, there's his dad and there's his mom, and there wasn't a lot of emotion there. So that was but rarely outside of that during the Obama administration, and really for the second term, that was the maelstrom in the Obama administration. It was the rise of Black Lives Matter, and then of course that was the main course, and the division between the races, which was, I think, terrible. Do we need to talk about racism, ignorance, bigotry? Sure, why not? I mean, we could have a discussion about that. But we should have a discussion about anything. And nothing should be off limits. Nobody should shut anything down. And unfortunately, what we've seen this movement where people on the left and the far left, they don't want to have that dialogue because it leads to hate speech, which is going to become more in vogue as we move through the next year and a half, 2 years, because it's just going to be part of Saturn and Capricorn and the government overreach, which we're already starting to see. We're only a few days into 2018, and Jeff Sessions has now said that he's going to criminalize marijuana at the state level, that the feds want to, that's done. The expansion of marijuana, like if you did not vote marijuana in as being legal, forget about it now. It's going to be very difficult unless, of course, there's going to be this potential for, kind of a new level of secession. Secession kind of rhymes with sessions, doesn't it? Kind of. Jeff Sessions is a Capricorn. He's born December 25th, and transiting Saturn is right on top of his sun. And so what's he doing? He's getting involved. He has become the instrument of the government overreach. If you have been following the news, he's basically said, hey, look, we're going to criminalize marijuana again and at a state level. And one of the reasons why it's happening, well, there's a lot of reasons. Astrologically, of course, it's the Sun-Saturn conjunction. I mean, that says it all. But one of the reasons why it's happening is because the feds aren't getting any money out of the states. Like Colorado made a lot of money over the last couple of years. A ton of money. Now, of course, if you own the dispensary, you're paying state tax, and you're probably paying some federal tax too. Of course you are. So they're getting that money, but they're not getting the big money from the states. Are getting the big money, and the feds are being cut out of that. So they're getting the individual proceeds, but the state is really where it's at. The state's making good money off Mary Jane in Colorado. And what happens is that the federal government needs that money. They need to have leverage. The Fed needs to have leverage over the states. It's really interesting how it's like, oh yeah, well, Texas has the right to basically tell businesses that, you can't really, if you divest from Israel, we'll strip you of your license. They have the right to do that. It's okay to do that. There's certain rights that states have that the federal government has no problem with. And there are other rights that states have that the federal government really has an issue with. So it's a selective process. Well, we'll support this, but we won't support. You can have the right to this, but not the right to that. And this is where the Civil War started. A lot of people think that the Civil War started over slavery. It does not start over slavery. It started over tariffs and taxes that were being laid on the South. And the South didn't want to pay them. They're like, no, we're carrying the water for you. What do you produce in the North? Where's all the agriculture and all the produce and all the stuff that comes out of the land? Where's it coming from? The textiles and the South had a very robust trading deal with England, and the North did not produce nearly as much as the South. So the North's like, okay, well let's get a piece of the pie. Let's get a piece of the action. We're going to throw down. We want some money here. And this is what was going on. And it was a taxation and tariff to the southern states. And then it morphed into the abolitionist issue, and they kind of converged and became one issue together, and then the abolitionist issue became the social issue. But really the bottom line was it was about money originally. Now, I don't think that the North was so moved by its morality that it had to take on half the country and split it apart because it felt so strongly about what was happening in the South with slavery. Sure, there were people that were people of conscience, but let's be clear, there were economic interests involved, and that's where it kicked off. And we're in a place like right now where it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same, and there's a big market in cannabis. Look, I've got mixed feelings about cannabis. I think medical cannabis is great. It's totally great. And look, if it's going to come down to going to a store and purchasing some, or going to a shady part of town, and purchasing some, I'm all for the store. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll never forget one time when I was in junior college and I was hanging out with this guy, Bill, and Bill was from Daly City, and he said, "Let's you want to." Remember, this is when I was young. Okay, I'm having a transparent moment here. I was young. It's like I don't partake anymore. I just don't. I'm a father. Okay, I'm a good father. I am a lucid father. But back in the day, we roll into this area near Candlestick Park in San Francisco. And he says, "Pull up here." Okay. And pull up to the corner, and all of a sudden, I would say about 20, 13-year-olds descended upon my car. And he said, "Roll down your window." And these kids are shoving bags, into the car. And he looked at one, he opened it up, he smelled it, he said, "Here, give him this. Go. Boom. We were done. We were done. And I was like, kind of mind blowing. It's like, it was so out of my experience. You know, and I was like, wow, that was really, now it was not out of my experience to experience some, you know, the substance. No, I mean, it was the 70s. And it was very in vogue. I grew up listening to Cheech and Chong. We used to, here we go, revisiting Robert Stoner past. When I was a kid, I mean, okay, so this is high school, all right? I'm going back a ways now. We used to go to this house in San Jose, and there was this guy we went to school with. His name was Craig. And we'd go to his house, and Craig's house was run by Mom and Pops. And Mom would open the door. Well, boys, come on in. And as we'd be going in, people would be leaving. And of course, there was a menu. And what do you have on the menu today? And so we, you know, it was a strange. So I was not immune to these situations. But the rabid capitalism of the 13-year-olds on the street corner was something to be experienced. Let me tell you. Who knows what happened to these kids? And this is what happens now in a drug culture. You think they just stopped there? You think they just decided that, well, I've made enough money so I can put myself through college? And maybe some did, who knows? But no, there's probably a level of escalation and a new level of cheaper, more powerful, cheaper to buy, and the markup would be tremendous when you get into the hard drugs and the narcotics and stuff like that. Although I never went down that path. So again, given a situation like that, or going to a store, hey, you know, when can I just go to the store? Give the 13-year-old something else to do. Maybe put a store in that neighborhood. Maybe take out a liquor store. How about that? Wouldn't that be interesting? Because you know, when you go to the inner cities or you go to places that are, you know, in the not the greatest part of town, you'll always find a liquor store. They'll always be there. Replace those with a dispensary and see what happens. Change the world. Anyway, Jeff Sessions wants to go in and take that stuff away. You know, even just growing it. Why not just grow it? You know, you just get it out of the way. Get it out of the commercial hands. Grow your own. But at least at a state level in Colorado, it's been providing some income. And during a time when people are struggling and there is no industry, that the corporations have moved away. They've taken up residence in places like China or Bangladesh or Mexico or Costa Rica or Venezuela, wherever. This provides kind of a stand-in. And there's all kinds of other satellite industries that are popping up around legalization. There's technology, there's distribution, you know, there's tracking and blockchain reporting and all kinds of stuff. It's spawning a subculture of other businesses that support it. And this is a country that needs business. It needs people to have some form of income and being able to provide for ourselves. And now Sessions wants to threatening to take it away. It's going to be very interesting to see how this shakes out between the states and the feds. Now, some people say, well, is this 4D? This is a 4D chess move. I don't know. I mean, are we looking at one hand where Sessions is playing the uber bad guy? See, the problem with Sessions, he's got a history. This predates being in the Trump administration. So he was going after Colorado and Oregon when it was Obama's watch. When he was in there with, so it's not like he just took this up overnight. He got the firecracker up his butt and said, "This is what we got to go do." No, he's been on this case for a while. In Alabama, he was apparently very tied into the cigarette industry. Now, for a long time, we all thought that when marijuana became legal, the cigarette industry would be the ones that were going to be poised to make all the money because they already have the distribution chain, they've got the manufacturing chain. It'd be real easy to just roll a pack of joints, as easy as it would be to roll a pack of cigarettes, and that's how it would go. We all thought that that's how it would take place, but it really hasn't. And what we've seen is independent forces inside of the cannabis industry that have risen to the it's part of the American dream in a lot of ways. So we need something to replace what's been lost in this country, which is manufacturing, production, distribution, and the exchange of services, products, goods for money. Plain and simple. If you threw hemp into the mix as well, we could just revolutionize everything. And I'm a big proponent of hemp. You think that the satellite industries around cannabis are huge? Unlock hemp and see what happens. You unlock hemp across the board, across the nation. You have people growing it, innovating, building cars out of it, clothes out of it. All of a sudden, wow. There's a whole new world. The millennials would do great with hemp. Are you kidding me? I mean, hemp could become the staple of the maker culture. You could use it for so many things. See, we're living in the dark ages when it comes to how we can revitalize the economy from basically two variations of one genus or one species. Real simple. And of course, we've got the CBD oil, which is coming basically from the hemp plant. And it doesn't get you high, but it will help you with certain aspects of inflammation and anxiety. It's a pretty tremendous application of relative to the cannabis plant, right? Through hemp. And so anyway, this is all good as far as I can tell. Really important stuff. The other piece here that nobody was really talking about, or maybe it's part of the murmurs here, but it's also how does this affect people like Glaxo and Merck and the big pharma companies? Because they don't like this. They'd rather get people on opioids. They'd love to get them on opioids because you get a lifelong customer. Oh, and then you've got to buy the pharmaceutical, because if you get on opioids, guess what happens? You get constipated, and you can't go to the bathroom. So now you've got to get a supplement that basically unlocks you so you can go to the bathroom. So now they've got you coming and going. You know what I mean? This is the pharmaceutical industry. They're like, shit. Sessions, get out there. Get out there, Jeff. We're going to shut this down. We're going to shut it down before we have to get out of Afghanistan and give all those poppies. Oh, yeah, they're all about that. They will keep that as part of their business model and their economic stream. Get people hooked on those opioids. CBD, cannabis, hemp. This is the future. It's the future. And you know what? The days of guys like Jeff Sessions are coming to an end. They just are. I mean, you look down the line, and I'm sure that there's a 35-year-old out there somewhere who could become a vague approximation of Jeff Sessions. But the chances of finding that person and grooming them and actually getting other 35-year-olds somewhere down the line to buy into it is very, very slim. Okay? Very slim. I'm here to tell you that at some point, and we're not that far off, we're probably about 10 to 12 years off, where the millennials are going to enter into government in a bigger way. They're going to enter into corporations are already there, but in a bigger way. Because the edge of the millennials right now are about, 35, 36. Give them another 12 years. So now we're at 47, 48. And guys like Jeff Sessions will be gone. Jeff Sessions, I believe, 67? So in 12 years, Jeff Sessions will be 79, 80 years old. He'll be gone. And he'll be replaced. Maybe he'll be replaced by somebody in their late 50s. I don't know. Maybe you'll have Sessions light. But at some point, there is going to be a turning of the tide. And I know the millennials get a bad rap, and sometimes I'm going to say it's kind of deserved, okay? I'm going to just be honest. And other times it's not deserved. And here's my Libra kicking in. When it's deserved, it is the fact that not all millennials are willing to engage in a level of curiosity. I feel like that there's just something missing there. Now, that's not to say that others aren't. I mean, because you can get on the 4chans and the 8chans, and you'll find some very, very hungry and curious people. But I would say by and large. But on the other hand, I also feel like that they have some values that are worth examining and integrating in a lot of ways. So it's going to be a very interesting process of maturation for this generation, especially as Saturn begins to conjunct their natal Neptune, because most of the millennials were born with Pluto, Pluto in Scorpio, and then Uranus in Capricorn and Neptune in Capricorn. Some of them will have a variation with, I think, Sag showing up. I think it's Uranus. But the majority have Neptune, Uranus, Pluto. Well, it's certainly Neptune and Pluto. Some will have Uranus and Sag, and some will have Uranus and Capricorn. So Saturn's going to cross, those two major planets, those two outer planets. And that's when, they get very clear, I think, at a cultural, social level about what they want to do and how they can make change. So at some point, it's going to be their game. And that's the bottom line. The tail end of the boomers, people like myself, born in 1960, I really don't consider myself a boomer. I don't consider myself a Gen Xer either. I'm kind of in this weird place. We're kind of going to be the last ring in some ways, and even the Gen X to some extent. But at some point, it's going to be the millennials' world. When they hit their mid-40s, late 40s, and they've got the numbers, if we're still in that game and we still have a majority of the people on the planet. So guys like Jeff Sessions, their days are numbered, and it's like they're trying to, this change is barreling. It is barreling down, the tracks, and they're trying to stop this change by throwing up, some, I don't know, a couple of barricades, traffic barricades, and this train is going to smash right through them at some point. And we're really going to see how the states react. You think Colorado is going to want to let go of that money that they're getting every year? No, hell no, they're not. They're going to want to hold on to it. And this is going to be a very interesting thing to watch. If it's not 4D chess, maybe it's all just a big distraction while the indictments go out. Tick, 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 tick. The clock is ticking on the indictments. I put a picture up on Facebook of Huma Abedin in a boot. It was an interesting picture. So she's another one of the boot club. Das Boot. By the way, there's a new post up on my website. And Murray Hill, who lives down in New Zealand, Murray and I have become friends. And Murray's been very passionate about a new interpretation for Capricorn. Because he's a Capricorn. He's born on the 2nd of January, so belated happy birthday. And he's like, I was feeding him stuff too. I was feeding him, images of the Capricorn as goatfish, images of Enki from Sumeria. So I've been feeding him some stuff, and he's certainly had enough original ideas. I'm like, hey man, why don't you just write a piece for the site? And he did, and people are loving it. So if you're a Capricorn or you have any interest in Capricorn and Saturn. There's a refreshing take on it over my website by Murray Hill, who's an illustrator. He's a great illustrator. He should add writer to his CV. It's really worth reading. So yeah, we're just a few days into the new year, and things are popping. And now we've got the Steve Wolf book, which I talked a little bit about yesterday, and I didn't get into it completely. Steve Bannon is almost as polarizing as Donald Trump. Steve Bannon reminds me of Confucius. And the reason why he reminds me of Confucius is because Confucius kept getting kicked out of these various courts in China because he demanded that the rulers be truthful. He was like, Confucius demanded that the rulers be truthful, and that they not only be truthful, but they also have a sense of integrity and accountability and make themselves an open vessel for the will of heaven. That was Confucius, and he had analects, principles of governing that he had laid out. If you follow the analects of Confucius, you could rule, and you could rule with heaven on your side. It's about alignment. It's about alignment with divine rule, divine will. Although Confucius wouldn't necessarily use those terms. But in order to do that, you've got to be honest, and you've got to be have integrity and all these pieces of character. And in many instances, all the various kings throughout all these different little principalities in China, all they wanted was power. And it's like, well, what can you do to make me more powerful? And when they realized that they had to do some real inner work in order to get the power, they kicked him out. It's like, this is too hard. I liked you for a while. You said some good stuff, but you weren't flattering enough. So Confucius went from court to court to court, and eventually wound up in, I've told this story before, he wound up in the desert in China. He had his people, his followers, and in the desert he meets Lao Tse. They were contemporaries, and Lao Tse said, look, the difference between me and you is that you piss people off because you demand them to tell the truth and be accountable and be honest, and I don't do that. Basically, I let people have their own experience, and there's not a lot of judgment, but the whole idea is to work towards some appreciation of what the Tao is, and the Tao being the spirit that flows through all things. And so he taught in parables and all kinds of other stuff. But he was not a polemic, and Confucius was a polemic. Steve Bannon's like Confucius, and he's looking for a court. That's what he just got kicked out of the court of Mercer, the modern royalty, right? That's who they are. They're modern royalty. Now, ironically, I think he got picked up by. Let me see. Hold on. Let's see this. Hold on. So, led by the Mercers, Bannon's allies abandon him. Sean Spicer, Bannon not denying Wolf book troubles me. Steve Bannon's new. Let's do this. Let's see if I can find this guy. Hold on. Is Michael Wolf book. Michael Wolf is a guy that's got some credibility issues as well, but they're trying to get him out of Breitbart, which is interesting. It was the company. Hold on a second. I gotta get this guy's name. What's the guy? Let's see. 18 hours ago, Rebecca Mercer publicly breaks with Steve Bannon. Drudge, who hates Bannon, exposes his new benefactor. Okay, this is the guy who, what's his name? His name is Miles Kwok, a.k.a. Guo Wen Gui. I don't know anything about this guy. Let me just plug this in. So he's got a new benefactor, Guo Wen Gui. Let's see what we got here. Hold on. I'm going to find out more about him. He's Chinese. This is so funny because Bannon has been railing against the Chinese, and now he's got a Chinese benefactor. Guo Wengui, also known under the names of Guo Wengui, Guo Haoyin, and Miles Kwok. I like Miles Kwok. As a Chinese billionaire who later became a political activist, and this is the guy that the Chinese want back. Right. Okay, this makes sense now. This makes sense. Guo Wengui, a ticking time bomb for U.S. China. So he is a maverick. So Steve Bannon has aligned himself with another maverick. And Miles Kwok was born on February 2nd, 1967, which makes him an Aquarius. Steve Bannon is a Sagittarius. There we go. It's a marriage made in the heavens. So Gui is 50. He was born in the year of the sheep. So he's born during that Uranus-Pluto conjunction. Now this is what China wants back. This is very interesting. This leads to a whole new level of palace intrigue. Because, like when Xi was in Florida hanging out with Trump, he actually was trying to get this guy, Miles Kwok, extradited. So, Guo Wengui, a ticking time bomb for U.S.-China ties in the Trump era. Guo Wengui, the maverick Chinese billionaire who threatens, there he is, to crash Xi's party. There's Steve Bannon and Miles Kwok. He paints himself as the Che Guevara of Chinese crony capitalism, a billionaire insurgent vowing to bring down the system from the comfort of his $68 million New York home. My only goal is to change China. Well, that's Steve Bannon's goal too. Guo Wengui, an eccentric and exiled Chinese property magnate, declared earlier this month on the eve of a key political convention in Beijing that he is promising to disrupt with electrifying revelations of skullduggery at the pinnacle of Chinese power. I think Steve Bannon's found his soulmate. There we go. This is from October 15th. So here's Bannon with Wengui together in this article. Very, very interesting. Not interesting. Roderick McFarquhar, a China expert at Harvard University, said it was impossible to predict whether the billionaire would succeed in crashing Xi's party. The wild card is what Mr. Guo has been spewing out in New York. He has promised to release his stuff as they're meeting in Beijing, and we will see. Recent weeks have seen this well-connected globetrotter, who is a member of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago club and has shared private jets with Tony Blair, to recast himself as a selfless freedom fighter, battling to expose the Leviathan Chinese mafia state. Steve Bannon's found his soulmate. No one can withstand our pursuit of democracy, freedom, and the rule of law, he boasted on Twitter last week. Interesting. Very interesting. So this is Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is probably Confucius from a past life. And he's found his Chinese lord, his Chinese king in the desert of his life. Banished from the White House. Banished from Mercer Island. Banished from Breitbart. Steve Bannon continues to fight the fight. And now he's got a pretty eccentric dude on his side. Very interesting. It says here his prime target has been Wang Qishan, Xi's anti-corruption czar, whose family he accuses of having a secret stake in HNA, a $53 billion Chinese conglomerate known for its deal-making prowess. So China wants this guy back, and they want his money. They want him back, they want his money. Now, isn't this interesting? Because He's aligned himself with Bannon. And if you're Trump, wouldn't you love to give this guy back now? But he's a member of this is all incestuous. They're all just sleeping with each other. This is so incestuous. Beijing has not taken kindly to Guo's incendiary, largely unproven claims. State media has denounced him as a dirty trickster, peddling political slander, and accused him of paying millions of pounds in bribes to former intelligence chief. An Interpol red notice for his arrest was issued in April at Beijing's behest. Meanwhile, the hyperbole-prone mogul claims he suffered multiple kidnap and assassination attempts, unprecedented in the last 100 years of Chinese history. While in the U.S., last month he asked for political asylum, claiming his safety was at risk because of his status as a political opponent of the Chinese regime. Interesting. This is Steve Bannon's new guy. So would they offer up? I mean, so the thing with Korea is North Korea is also, excuse me, kind of accelerating, not from the North Korean side. They finally have opened up a phone line between them and South Korea, which hasn't existed for a while. But apparently the Chinese are moving troops to the border in North Korea. They're on the northern border, not on the southern border. They're on the northern border. They've been moving them there by the dark of night. But we know that with the eyes in the sky, they see pretty much everything. They know what's happening. And there are moles inside of North Korea. Don't you know that? Not everybody in North Korea is completely loyal to Kim Jong-un. And who knows what North Korea is anyway? It could just be Disneyland. But if the Chinese want this Kwok guy back, and if there's a real beef between Trump and Bannon, if you're Trump, when you say, hey, look, we'll send back Miles Kwok if you move the troops off the border there so we can come in, and when we steamroll North Korea, or you're just kind of out of the equation. So now they've got a bargaining chip here. This is fascinating stuff. Totally fascinating stuff. Anyway, Steve Bannon has found his new benefactor, somebody who hates the Chinese. Well, I don't think Bannon hates the Chinese. I think Bannon sees that the Chinese have been given a huge, huge advantage through the extension of 2 administrations over the course of 16 years, starting with the Clintons and selling everything to the Chinese and on the cheap, giving them major favored nation trading status and all that stuff, and selling all these secrets and giving them technology. It was like, hey, we're open for business. Come on over, China. What do you want? And then the Bush administration, according to Bannon, enabled them on a geopolitical military level. So it was 1-2. They got the business stuff from the Clintons and the military pieces and favoritism from the Bushes. So that was 16 years of royal treatment. And I think Obama was kind of continuing that while he was in the White House. Now all of a sudden, I don't know. Trump talks tough with the Chinese, but he had the guy over at his place, hung out in Mar-a-Lago. Interesting times, am I right? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we still haven't figured out what happened with Hillary's place. What else do we have going on today? Hold on a second. I had some stuff I wanted to talk about. Sometimes you get kind of so deep into. I don't know. That's not really deep, but I was taken by this Miles Kwok guy. When Brad Pitt was with Jennifer Aniston, that was a Sagittarius Aquarius relationship, and they get along really well. If you're a Sagittarius or Aquarius looking for love, go find each other. 2 signs that have a huge amount of tolerance for one another. I guess the cyclone bomb, the bomb cyclone, is over. I think it hit its worst yesterday. There were 60-mile-per-hour winds. I had a client yesterday I was talking with in New York. 60-mile-per-hour winds. And 15-degree temperatures, something like that. Crazy stuff. Apparently, it's over, and I guess the weather is going to turn at some point, but I don't think soon enough for some of these football games. Where are they going to be played this week? Let's see. We got a game in California with the Rams. That's happening in L.A. And then we have a game in Kansas City, which should be frigid, but not East Coasty. And then there's going to be a game in Jacksonville. That will be warm. And then a game in New Orleans. So I think the NFL for this week escapes the sub-zero temperatures, or the zero temperatures, not sub-zero, but in terms of hyperbole. Next week, the cold weather games will show up with New England and Pittsburgh, and I think Philadelphia has a home game next weekend. So that should be interesting to watch and keep an eye on, just in terms of safety and playing in such intense and frigid conditions. But this whole thing with this book that's coming out, Trump demanded that it not be published. He demanded that it not be published. It's a very royal decree, isn't it? I demand this book not be published. It's going to be published, and it's going to create an incendiary fire between a lot of different factions. It's going to get hot and heavy, and it's going to be one of those things where you're either going to circle the wagons around Trump, or it's going to polarize more of his base. And I think that there's a lot to be said for commitment and loyalty. And that you voted for somebody, you believe in the person, you think that they're going to stay the course, and they're going to fulfill the mission that you voted for. And in Obama's case, of course, that happened. If you voted for Obama, those first 4 years, that was the golden age. You were living in the Renaissance. You were getting healthcare reform passed and all these other goodies. I mean, my God, I was not an Obama person, but if I was, those first 4 years, I'd be giddy, absolutely giddy. This is not the case for Trump, obviously, but he's done a lot of things that, quote unquote, his people believe in. There are some things he's done that I like. I like the fact that he got us out of the TPP. That was good Trump. That was fresh Trump. Excuse me. Can you tell me if the Trump is fresh today? I'm sorry, sir. Today the Trump is fresh frozen, but we do get it on a very regular basis from a very cold water deep port in Alaska. Oh, thank you so much. I think I'll pass on the fresh frozen Trump today. But he's done some good things. Now, Bannon's contention is that there was that version of Trump, and now there's a new version of Trump who's aligned himself with Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan and all the other swamp creatures. And this is, and think of what you want with Bannon, that he's a prostitute, he's a mouth for hire, whatever. You know these guys that go into these think tanks, whether it's the Koch's think tank, or whether it's AEI, American Enterprise, whatever. And their multitude, they're people like Newt Gingrich and Richard Pearl. I mean, they're all over the place. Like, Washington is crawling with these people. And they may not be a mouthpiece, but they're engaged in some form of political skullduggery, behind-the-scenes machinations. It's like where things like the project for the New American Century was cooked up at AEI, American Enterprise Institute, right? And AEI and Brookings, they cooked up the project for a New American Century. Don't you think that that's the only thing they've cooked up? They've got other things that they've cooked up too. They just haven't launched him yet. And this is what goes on. And sometimes, like somebody like Newt Gingrich, they get a microphone in front of their face and they get to talk. I mean, they're mouths for hire too. Karl Rove is a mouth for hire. The difference between Karl Rove and Newt Gingrich and Steve Bannon is they're not as smart as Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon's a smart guy. Is he an opportunist? Probably. But who in Washington or politics is not an opportunist? That's the name of the game. It's like calling the kettle black. Give me a break. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Is this book news? Is it fake news? The way Wolf has framed it is that, well, I've heard things and I've pieced things together. He doesn't have absolute direct quotes. It's kind of like when Obama had that book come out about his love life. Like there had to be a book that somehow proved Barack Obama's heterosexuality. And they had to come up with one person that remembered him from college. And that person wasn't even really one person. It was a cipher. Remember that? Oh, yes, he's virile. He's straight. He went to college. Maybe not. Maybe none of those things. Because he was a cipher. A compendium of a number of different people who were actually molded into one perfect lover. So is this book a series of ciphered events? Is it bordering on fake news? Well, clearly it's coming out, and it's already creating waves. And once Trump demanded that the book not come out, they said, okay, well, let's move that timetable up. We're going to get it out sooner. So talk about chaos. Mm-hmm. But, what's also interesting I'm going to get into the realm of sports. There's also kind of this other thing going on in sports right now with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. And there's all these rumors coming out about how Bob Kraft, who owns the Patriots, had a falling out with Belichick, who had a falling out with Brady, and all this stuff is going on. Of course, in Patriot land, they're saying, well, there's some of it is true, but most of it is hype. So it's interesting that we have these two kinds of storylines going on simultaneously. They're sort of, in parallel universes. And also that Bob Kraft is such an ardent supporter of Donald Trump. He was one of the guys that came right out after the tax bill was passed and clapped his hands and said, oh, this is great. This is a totally great thing for America. Of course, it's great for Bob Kraft and all of his commercial real estate holdings. Your commercial real estate was not taxed under the Trump plan. You know that, right? Only residential. They took away the exemption. Interesting times we're living on. Let's see. Sessions, the guy who is advising Sessions, wants doctors to drug test everyone. Now there is an industry. If people out there are looking for things to invest in, hey, drug testing. Where's it going to take place? Maybe they can just drug test you down at CVS. They sell the kits. You can get the kit at CVS, and you can have your own drug testing kit. Have it at home. That's out there. Let's see. Trump now may sue Bannon. The soap opera heats up. I'll tell you what's going to be the backstory here, and it's going to move to the front story very soon, is Trump's mental health. There's a piece that's appearing, that's just come out in The Atlantic, and it is something neurologically wrong with Donald Trump. So keep your eye on this. This is the story, and this is the. It's not even a meme. It's more along the lines of a strategy that the left are going to pursue if indeed they win the majority of the seats in the November midterms. If Trump actually lasts that long. Look, I think I've seen the chart. I've looked at the chart. 2018 is a sort of a very difficult year for Donald Trump because of the opposition of Saturn to his Cancer planets. Saturn's going to go through Capricorn, 5th house. He's going to have issues with his kids, which is the 5th house. And the big issue, I think, is with Donald Trump Jr. And then Saturn's going to oppose Mercury, Venus, and Saturn. Saturn opposition, all in successive order. Now, in astrology, when the Saturn opposition takes place, what happens? The life takes a pivot. There is a major change in the Saturn opposition. And the Saturn opposition happens roughly around 44 years of age. Now, it's not going to happen when Trump is 88. It's going to happen before then. But it's going to be a big deal, this Saturn opposition. It's 3 years out, so Trump is what? He was 70 when he was elected, right? So 73, 74, right around there. That's when, just before 73, right around 73 is when he goes through that Saturn opposition. I think he's a one-term president, and I'll be surprised if he makes it all the way through. I will be surprised because of this, and he could, because at some point what's going to happen to his base is that they're going to have to choose. It's like a divorce, right? And ultimately, I think one kid chooses one parent over the other in a divorce. Okay? I think this happens. This happens because there's a triangulation that takes place. Now, that kid may regret having chosen that parent later on. But in that moment, they're choosing one parent over the other. At some point in time, it happens. It happens. So Trump's base will wind up choosing Trump over Bannon, even if there's 10% of a chance that it's 9D chess, which it might be. Might in quotes. I love the fact that we talk about this now. I love the fact that we talk about this, 5D chess. Because in a lot of ways, it gets us to think about things in a different kind of way. In a very different kind of way. And we have to take these things into consideration. Now, that's good on the one hand. On the other hand, if we play in the realm of abstraction too much, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Am I right? I mean, that's just the way it is. Unless, of course, you're Trump. His cigar is bigger than your cigar. No, it's messing around. But they're going to have to choose. And this is what I think is going to happen. And if that's the case, they're going to have to figure out. So, okay. They're going to need to have all their always Trump, MAGA supporters, and midline Republicans on board by November. So I think everything is going to go into completely burning down Steve Bannon. They have to. They have to. And look, Bannon was part of the reasons why Trump got elected. I'm sorry. Trump thinks he's the master candidate, but Bannon had a strategy, and Bannon started to plug Trump directly into the electorate. He found the pit stops along the way. He helped craft the language, the message. Him and Kellyanne Conway the Trump campaign was kind of floundering, and then they came on board. And I don't think you can separate their influence into Trump's win. And again, if you look at Kellyanne Conway and Bannon, what are they? Sagittarius, Aquarius. They were a good team. So look, we're just 8 days into the year, right? We're 5 days into the year. 5 days into the year. Not even 8, 5 days into the year. And the shit is happening. It is totally happening. For everybody else who's out there and dealing with illness and colds and flus, boy, man, this is a really rough time. Very rough time in terms of staying healthy. I'm starting to turn a corner. And the best thing we can do is get a lot of rest. And I'm limiting my exposure to public places, to be honest with you. The bone broth seems to be working quite well. I have found this bone broth that it's a turkey bone broth with turmeric in it. And I'm sure you could just, get turkey bone broth and add your turmeric. But I found this one, it tastes good. It tastes medicinal. And I've been adding Bragg's aminos to it. And I've been drinking 2 or 3 of these cups a day, plus the great tea that I got from David Limacher. It's the funky mushroom, chaga tea from David Limacher. That's been really good. I cooked it up, or I brewed it in my crock pot, which is what he recommended. And I've been drinking a couple of those cups a day, and slowly but surely, I'm turning the corner. The aircraft carrier is turning around in the middle of the ocean. I think that's really about it for today. It's not I think we've gone down a few rabbit holes, at the very least. I'm looking to make some changes on Fridays. And coming back to that format where I'm bringing some more guests on. And of course, I do the last Friday of every month with Steve Crimmy and his wife, Chris. And I'm thinking about, in fact, not even thinking about, I'm just trying to figure out when I'm going to do this. I've had Shauna Home on my show a couple times, and she's a writer and all kinds of things. And I invited her to come on my show once a month as well. So I think we're going to probably do that maybe the first Friday of every month. And then the other 2 Fridays, maybe I'll bring on some other guests and do some more interviews, because I'm sure you people get tired of listening to me from time to time. It's good to have other voices in here. And the regular ones, too. I like having regular guests. It's like having a really long, ongoing conversation, My Dinner with Andre style, which if you've not seen, I highly recommend. So that's some of the changes that are going to be taking place here soon. All right, I'm going to save my voice for the rest of the day, and I'm going to get on out of here, and maybe I'll go get something to eat. I think I'll do that. All right, you know the drill here. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to the Friday FARcast. I'll be back on Sunday night. Yes, I will be back on Sunday night with the first astrological live stream of 2018. Let's see, what is Sunday night? Let's just get the date here. What is today's Friday? So Sunday night is the 7th. Man, the 7th of January has been coming up for me in a big way. In a lot of just time, personal moments, and then of course Monday, the 8th, David Bowie's birthday. I believe, if I am not mistaken, right? Bowie died, 2 days after his birthday. So was it the 10th? It was the 10th. I did the show on Friday the 8th, and then on, I guess it was a Sunday morning, he had passed away. So the 9th to 10th. That was a trip. That was a total trip. I remember being on the show talking, and I just like, okay, well, what am I going to talk about today? Like, oh, it's Bowie's birthday. Let's pop up his birth chart. And I was going to talk about, my time when I interviewed Bowie. And I looked at his chart. I'm like, holy shit, this guy is not well. Something's going on with this guy. And I said to him, I said this on air. I said, and I was very solemn about this. I said, I think we better appreciate David Bowie while we can. That's what I said. And 2 days later, some people think he didn't die. He just he pulled a Robin Gibb, who apparently didn't die either. Wouldn't it be great to not die? I think that's the key to everything. It's like you cheat death in some ways. But I think there might be a cult around this. There might be some kind of a religion around this, where by feigning death, you cheat death. Theoretically, you get to watch all these people mourn for you. Kind of that Huck Finn thing. Isn't that right? And then you get to have another life, divorced from all the karma and the baggage that you were carrying before, maybe the debt too, whatever that is. And especially if you've had music, and I bet you they all hang out. I wonder if there's like a really luxurious condo where Robin Gibb and Michael Jackson and Tupac and Bowie were all hanging out. I bet you they have a killer band. Don't you think? I'd love to hear the tapes from those sessions. I wonder if Chris Cornell is there. No, Chris Cornell is gone, unfortunately. Anyway, just a little whimsy there. All right, so we'll be back on Sunday night, and stay warm, stay healthy, vitamin C it, get high-grade vitamin C, do everything in your power. Vitamin D, they're dimming the skies with all the geoengineering. Make sure you get a lot of good vitamin D, and just take care of yourself. All right, I'll see everybody on Sunday night on the live stream. I'll be doing some charts. Oh, and I'm going to be on Off Planet Radio on Tuesday, and I'm going to be on another show on Monday night, so it's going to be kind of a big media week. I'll keep you posted if you want to hear even more of me. So